Hi everybody, this is Angel Arts, and here is a vlog number 8 for the Sinlyn Trials, session 8, 8, right there. As usual, spoiler warning for those of you who have not caught up yet, please feel free to watch up through session 8 before continuing on with this vlog. I guess I'm going to start with something that I had already kind of pointed out at the end of this past session, which is one thing I'm very impressed by with Devin is his creativity when it comes to, well, obviously the world, I think, is extremely creative, and I've mentioned that a few times over the last several vlogs, but he definitely spends a lot of time trying to design many of the characters, the NPCs. And I had mentioned that the character of Ray, or the Destroyer, is certainly one of the most unique characters that I've ever encountered. Simply that for him, a lot of the normal rules, especially about morality, I'm going to be talking about morality throughout this video quite a bit, because that seems to be the big theme that I got out of this session, is a lot of the rules of morality for a character like Ray don't really apply. They're not really valid, because here is a being. We don't even know if he's necessarily fully human. He most likely is not. But this is a being who pretty much is a major threat to anyone who manages to tick him off, even if it's unintentional. He's non-discriminatory. Like, he's an equal opportunist. It doesn't matter if you are intending on ticking him off or not, even if you like looked at him the wrong way, or if he accidentally like spilled something on him. He will take you down. He will kill you. He will destroy you. And anyone else who gets in his way ends up not being in his way, even if it's the law enforcement who are coming in to try to arrest him for killing someone who arguably didn't deserve it. And, he leveled an entire city, the entire city of Palant, I think, because that's just the way he behaves. And when you're talking about morality, a being like that who, just can't, I guess, function the way society normally functions, civilized society normally functions, is dangerous and a detriment. Um, and something that you can argue, is it right to want to destroy him? Is it right to put him down? And you can say, well, yes, because if you don't, then he can be the source of a lot of unnecessary pain and grief for people who you consider to be innocent. But then when you look at the way that he is, Devin said himself, this is a character that he didn't bother having any stats. He's just undestructible. Once he goes, there's nothing stopping him until he decides for himself that whatever threat exists against him is gone. And then that's when he decides to stop. So again, that is very unsettling as a player, but and part of it is because you can't really look at him as a sentient being sometimes, because I think that the way Devin described him is spot on. He's a force. He's like a force of nature. You know, if a hurricane comes in and kills, hundreds of innocent people, you can't take the hurricane to trial. You can't, put the hurricane in jail or punish the hurricane for killing all of these people who happen to be in its way. It doesn't work that way. The laws, it's a law of nature. It just is there, and there really isn't much you can do about it. And that is a really interesting analogy between Ray's character, or the Destroyer, and I guess the Weather, who again is indiscriminate, equal opportunist when it comes to whatever the Weather ends up deciding to mess up other people's day. And again, it's not because the Weather is intentionally trying to mess each other's day. It's just the Weather is just going to do what the Weather is going to do, and And so it's really tough for me to sympathize with Ray because part of me is like he's danger to other people and maybe not necessarily dangerous to himself, which is why it's so tough for a player like me who is trying to find something redeemable about a character like that, um, and trying to find out, well, what does his goal, like what does he want, what is his dreams, what are his passions, and he doesn't really seem to have any. He's just full of hate, and a force like that, like it's hard to argue black and white, is this a good being or an evil being? And I don't think it's neither. I don't think it's either. Just like a hurricane is not necessarily good or evil in the sense of good and evil. So it's tough for me to fully grasp my ultimate feelings or my ultimate opinion of Ray as a person, because you kind of can't treat him like a person, and that in and of itself is a little, I don't know, bothers me a bit and disheartening. It's a troublesome character to think about. It's a character that makes you not really want to think too deeply about it because you can't help but feel guilty and you start questioning your personal beliefs and your personal morals and your personal thoughts of what is or isn't good, or like what is or isn't good to see this person, how to see this person, how to interpret this person. So there's a lot of things about the Ray and the Destroyer that you can discuss and talk about, and I just find the whole concept fascinating because it's challenging and a little scary talking about a being like him. While we're on the topic of morality, this session in particular brought out something about Quinn that I admit I never really thought much about prior to this session. That's what I love about um, having the opportunity to roleplay these characters, is when they are in certain situations. Um, you start getting into a sense of, well, what would my character do or say or think or reason during circumstances like this? And in particular, it's Quinn's stance on things that might be quote unquote taboo or quote unquote dark or evil. Things like necromancy. So she sees necromancy as a great way for her to ultimately help people. Some people tend to shy away from necromancy because they think it's black magic or death magic. Much like in the Dragon Age series, a lot of people tend to shy away from blood magic because of what's involved. And yes, there's a lot of ways that blood magic has been used. Many have been used for ill will, for, you can again quote unquote say, evil, if you want to start coloring things good versus evil. Just like there are many things classically that necromancy has done that are quote unquote evil towards innocent people. And Quinn's stance, she's a chaotic good character, and I believe that as a chaotic good character, she's interpreting that kind of argument as, well, why do you necessarily see something like necromancy as good or evil? It's not necessarily evil or even good or evil. It can be both depending on how it's used. It's all in the utilization of it. Just like, the argument that she said earlier, prior to that, before she even brought out her necromancy magic. I forgot what the situation was. Oh, it was about Ray. It was about Ray. Um, somewhere in that conversation, she said, when you have a sword or a gun like Hem had, when you have a sword or a gun or some kind of weapon, that object is not in and of itself evil. It's all in how you use it. It's a tool. Much like there are tools that traditionally are used for good things, like building something. Like a hammer is what she uses as an example. A hammer is normally a tool that is used to build something, to create something, and normally to create something good, like shelter for people. But you can take that same thing, you can take that same hammer and use it as a weapon, a very lethal weapon against someone. Um, and again, just like her as a reporter, as a writer, she can use, her abilities. She can use the media for good or bad. Like she can stretch the truth too much, or like she can use, she can stretch the truth or completely lie in her articles to convince the people to believe a certain thing, whether it's true or not, to rile them against a certain cause. And she can easily do it in such a way that deceives them or gives them half-truths. You can use the media in the wrong way, or you can use the media in the right way as well. And I think Quinn tries her best to lean more towards using the media in the right way. And she mentioned this to Saroon specifically about I guess the morals of being someone in the media when they were trying to talk to Dubois. I think going into Dubois' estate, she was talking about her stance on how the media should or shouldn't be used. And that again was another session where I had to really think about and define what are Quinn's stances on specific things. So here, going back to this necromancy and death magic, she doesn't see anything innately bad about what she's doing because ultimately she's trying to find information about these pirates who just out of the blue decided that they wanted to plunder the ship and kill them, um, innocent people who didn't deserve it. And so, if Quinn says if we can find where these people are and take them out, she has no problem taking out people who take out innocents. Because, if she can use this necromantic magic in a way to find the people who are hurting other people, other innocent people, then it's good. It's ultimately good. The argument can always be made. Good intentions. The road to hell is lined with good intentions, and to which, I think she says, if I end up having to walk into the fiery pits of hell for helping people, for ultimately, saving people's lives, so be it. She's gonna do that. I think that I mentioned something like this in one of my Let's Plays, my Dragon Age Let's Plays, and I don't want to get too much into it, about how, so I'm a Christian, I'm a practicing Christian, and but I admire greatly people who don't necessarily follow a faith or who are atheists. My husband is an atheist, and and the reason why I admire them so much is because as Christians, many of us, I'm not saying all, but many of us tend to follow the word of God because, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the only reason, obviously, but there may be a part of the reason why we try to follow certain things and do or don't do certain things is because we believe that we'll be rewarded for it, if not during this life, but then when we die and move on to whatever the next life is, if you believe in an afterlife. And or we do or don't do certain things because we believe that if we went against that, then we would be punished, if not in this life, then in the next life. So I kind of admire people who don't believe in that and yet still are good people, still act and behave and follow a specific code, not because they believe that either they'll be rewarded or because they believe they will not be punished. It's not because of that, it's because it's the right thing. Do the right thing because it's the right thing, and it's what you should be doing for your fellow man. That should be the main reason why you do it, not because you think you're going to get rewarded for it or because you're going to get punished for it if you don't. Do you kind of see the difference there? So for Quinn, I mean, she's taking that to the extreme in sense that I might be punished for using this magic, and if the gods or whoever decides that I should be punished will punish me, if at the end of the day I was able to help people by doing something that I'm being punished for, so be it. I mean, how many times in history did people end up getting the short end of the stick or get punished for standing up for what they believe is right and for standing up for what they believe needs to happen, for the good of mankind or for the good in general. There's a lot of people. Martin Luther King, for example, Abraham Lincoln, for example. Like all throughout history, people, horrible things happen to people, and some people even like literally have burned for doing what they believed is right for the good of other people and for the good of humanity. So Quinn, that's what Quinn is trying to say, is that ultimately, she's telling Saroon, I'm not, and she says, I understand that you believe in Karis and that you believe in the light, and she does too. She's a follower of Karis too, but there's comes a line where you have to ask yourself, what are you trying, why do you do the things that you do? What is your motivation and reasoning behind the things that you're doing? Are you doing it because, you know, because it's the right thing to do, because it's going to help other people? Or are you doing it because you feel that you're going to get rewarded if you do or punished if you don't? And that's something that it seemed to be an ongoing theme throughout this session. And I think it's pretty cool that I was able to, because of the events of this session, I was able to determine a very big part of Quinn's belief system and the way that Quinn looks at a situation and thinks about specific situations. So I'm really looking forward to see how Saroon and Quinn may or may not debate about this topic, or even Blaze. And again, speaking about Blaze, another part of morality that I thought was super interesting is that Quinn was very upset when Blaze didn't really seem to be all that concerned about the two crewmen who died during the fight, during the session. He just kind of, people die. I mean, we're legends, and we shouldn't be worrying about that. And Quinn's argument is, no, because we're legends, we should worry about that. Because, when you talk about legendary stories, there are so many people who helped legends, so many heroes throughout history, this happens in real life too, that are forgotten. They help the heroes, they assist the heroes accomplish whatever deeds they accomplish, even if it's for something as simple as being the drivers or the crewmen of the boat that transported them from point A to point B. They helped them, attain their goals, and yet they are never mentioned in the stories, or even if they are mentioned, it's not to the point that you really pay that much attention to them. And so Quinn is very much as trying to point out, hey, we used to be them too. We used to be the little people too. And when you reach a certain status, a certain legendary status, she believes that it's very important to humble ourselves. And I understand this is Blaze we're talking about when we're talking about humility. But for her, she believes deep in her heart that, as a people kind of person, she's a social person, that we're all in this together. And you need to remember, she doesn't refer to them as the little people, but you know what I'm talking about. You need to remember all the people that helped you out. And when there's a situation when people die and when you have casualties, these are people that have families, and the people who have maybe kids, parents, things of that nature. And every death should matter. You should not just ignore them and put them on the carpet. And this is what happens quite often in tabletop gaming in general. I'm getting a little bit meta right now, but in tabletop gaming in general, or in video games in general, or in movies, in books, all that collateral damage, all of the people on the side who get hurt, injured, or killed during these stories, very rarely do players stop and think about these people as actual people, like as actual deaths, because they're normally just an afterthought. And it's understandable that they're just an afterthought, because you don't really have time to linger over characters that you never technically got attached to. These are all just nameless characters who happen to be in the middle of a fight, who happen to be unlucky enough to get caught in, who got caught in whatever it is the adventures were doing. And, people get hurt, people get killed, people get injured, and very rarely do players take the time to really allow the gravity of that sink in, or they don't really pay attention to that. And I think that realistically, Quinn would. Realistically, she doesn't take death, you know, she tries to take death seriously, and she doesn't take death for granted. And I think that's another reason why she feels that she's in the right for using necromancy, because she does respect death. She does respect life. She does respect death. And when people around them die, innocent people around them die, it affects her, and she feels that they need to be honored. They need to be treated with respect and with dignity, which is why she was trying to encourage Saroon to maybe say a few things, say a few words, have some sort of prayers or rites, because at the end of the day, these are in game. These are real people with real lives who might have had real families, and even if they did, like, they died, and that's a big deal to her. So it's something that as players we don't really think much about, and I understand why. But I wanted Quinn to look at things a little bit realistically about the red shirts, all of the red shirts around here that are dropping like flies. It's she doesn't want to get numbed by that. Death. She understands death's going to happen when you're in this line of work, but that doesn't mean that you necessarily have to see them as. She wants them to. She wants it always to matter. She wants every life that they were not able to save, every innocent life they were not able to rescue. She wants it to matter. It doesn't necessarily have to be to impact them in such a way that it weighs on them. Like, oh my goodness, look at all these people that we weren't able to save. We're horrible heroes because we weren't able to keep everybody safe. That's not what I'm talking about. But it's just one of those things that she feels really adamant about. And for someone like Blaze, she's trying to teach him about humility and teaching about why is he doing what he's doing? Why does he want to be a legend? Is he trying to be a legend because he himself wants all the glory? Because he wants to be applauded and lauded and be told stories about? If that's why he's being a legend, that's his business. Quinn, that's not why she wants to be a legend. She doesn't want to be a legend because of the accolade. She wants to be a legend because she wants to actually make a difference. She wants to actually help people. That's why she became a reporter. Not because she wanted to, be this well-known celebrity. Of course, that's a big perk. But ultimately, as she said, if you ask her deep down inside, to her core, the reason why she did this, obviously part of it was to be able to help support her family, but it's something that she enjoys. And why does she enjoy it? Because she, first and foremost, is trying to make a difference in the city of Auburn. She's trying to help people. That's why she's doing what she's doing. That is her motivation. And she's sort of trying to get Blaze to really think about, to really assess, why does he really want to be a legend? That's a big, and does Blaze, Blaze has to, she wants him to start thinking about his priorities and his true motivations of things. Because I think that it's something that is very much in the forefront of Quinn's mind. And the last thing I wanted to mention is the little go-between with Blaze and Quinn about Blaze's parents. I think somebody had mentioned in the comments, stop, basically saying, stop giving Blaze a hard time. He doesn't want to talk about his parents already. Stop it. And I was a little taken aback about that, because Quinn was not trying to give him a hard time about his parents. I think, when I was role-playing her, I was trying to make it very clear that the only reason she was asking is because she cared. She cared. If you have gotten to know someone and, if you found out that somebody was adopted, naturally, one of the things that I think a good friend would ask is, have you ever had the opportunity to meet your biological parents? Did you ever have any desire? Did you ever try to make contact with your parents or your roots or where you came from? I think that's something that a good friend would be curious about, not because they're trying to give you a hard time. So I think that people have to be try to be aware of Quinn's intentions. Is like, yes, she does poke fun at Blaze, just like Blaze pokes fun at Quinn, but it's not because she's trying to. There's no animosity behind it. In fact, it's quite the opposite, really, especially with a situation like this. Is that she just wants to get to know Blaze more. And part of being a closer friend is that you share things with each other. You share personal things with each other. And she doesn't want to necessarily have Blaze, open up stuff in his private life that he didn't really want to talk about. I don't think that Blaze really expressed, at least during my conversation, it didn't seem like Blaze, didn't say much about it because he didn't want to talk about it. It was more like he just didn't, there really wasn't much to say. He claims that he didn't really think much about it at the time. So we're going to see if there's anything that comes of that with Blaze's parents. I can only imagine so. But I think that's for a later session. So thank you guys for watching, and until next time, love yourselves and love each other.